Good evening, folks. This is Dave Schmidt. It's the evening of November 28th, and this is the preliminary report for the program tomorrow, November 29th. I'll be doing the radio program and, again, the live streaming on Facebook. Well, I've got some really good news that I want to share. Obviously, I'm somewhat limited to the amount of depth I can go into, but let me just say this. This weekend, I will be traveling. I will be traveling here in the United States to be able to meet with one of my paymasters. What I can say is there are some of the paymasters that have been paid. There is one of the paymasters that I'm familiar with that he bought himself a brand new, he received an advance, and he bought himself a brand new vehicle. There's another paymaster that I am familiar with that was able to get a letter, an official letter from his bank saying that the funds were in the bank and he was able to acquire a piece of property through that official letter. That's the advancement that is taking place. That's about all that I could give. I wish I could give more, but most of the information will come after the fact. But what I can say is it's basically an extension of what I've been talking about 2 to 3 weeks ago, is funds are moving and funds are in place. Now, I do not know all the details, and I want to be very clear. That's only one. I have 6 different contracts, and this is only one of them, and it is only the first one. When I've talked about this in the past, I've basically kind of clarified there are 3 major different funding sources. And these major funding sources are different than each other. They do not communicate and contact each other, and they have nothing to do with each other. And each of these have different criteria or parameters about how and when their funds are to be released. So just because you may hear something from one source, it doesn't mean it's happening everywhere. I want to come back and talk about those 3 different funding sources. The first one has been what we have always referred to as the elders and the dragon families. Now, you have heard lots of different reports about elders, and I want to clarify, there are a lot of different levels of elders and grandfathers. Anybody in these organizations can call themselves an elder, and anybody can call themselves a grandfather. The real question is there tangible, verifiable evidence of their having their funds and their ability to release and move those funds? Now, I have been in direct contact with the individuals that say that they are basically the ones at the top sources. This individual I've met with has said he has met with the CEO of HSBC Bank in Hong Kong and has been told that they have more money in their bank than anybody in the world. There are 3 members of this team that have traveled all around Asia to meet with all 9 of the senior elders that they call the senior elders. And underneath that are a lot of different levels. Those are the ones that I'm in touch with what we would call, the dragon families, the elders, the grandfather, whatever term that you wish to use. There's a second group that is basically responsible for what is taking place at the government level. There's how it's been told to me, there's a 128 nation agreement, a contract that they have all agreed to and signed on to. Their funds are predominantly from decades of these off-market trading platforms. And the people that I communicate and contact in that, they have seen the money, it's in the bank, they're waiting for authorization for it to be released. And the third source are some of the other trusts, very large trusts, and the one that's predominant that I'm working with is the one that's based out of London. Now, what's really important to understand is in all of these, there can be black hats and there can be white hats. There are white hat elders and grandfathers that are out there. But myself and others, we have traced back false, deliberate misinformation to black hat elders, black hat grandfathers that are not operating necessarily what we call in the best interest of us as individuals. The black hats are basically operating in the interest of power and control. Yes, they have lots of money to release, and you're probably going to find that in these black hat groups, there's going to be various forms of power and control of how they're going to release the funds and what it's going to be, what you can do with it and what you can't do with it. And they have the ability to watch how you release your funds, and if you misappropriate or misuse the funds, they have the ability to recall them back from you. Now, those are only very broad and preliminary issues around these funds. But what I can tell you is in all 3 of them, the funds are very real. I was on a conversation with a friend of mine just this past week, and he wanted to be very candid with me. And he says, Dave, do you really, really believe that this money is for real, or that this is really going to happen. Can you guarantee it's going to happen? And I says, I can't guarantee anything. I'm only the messenger. I am not the facilitator. I'm not the provider. I'm not the organizer. I'm not the coordinator. My job is I'm a messenger through this, but I have contacts at the very top. And it says, I can't guarantee, and I don't know of any of them that can absolutely guarantee that all of this is going to happen. But what I can tell you is this money's real. It's very real money. It's very real money in very real bank accounts. If it wasn't, these people would be directly lying right to my face, and I know that they're not. And secondly, they have seen the money in the accounts, and even one of them has already received their bank codes where they can access the funds. They can get into the account, but they are not yet free to release the funds. So at the end of the day, we don't always really know what's going to happen. Now, I've used all these what are called round 1 and round 2 clarifications. Round 1 funds are those who have already turned in their currencies. They already have contracts, and they're in contracts, and they're waiting to be paid. Round 2 are those that are going to be, that is my term that I use, are those of you that are on my list, and we have to wait for round fund to be completely finished. And I have been told by the funding sources directly, as I had meetings with them, that they are willing to fund all the people on round 2 to fund all of their projects. And round 2 project funding at this time is predominantly for projects. Yes, there will be individual money that will be released, but don't expect that you're going to get the billions and the billions of dollars. That just is not going to happen, folks. Okay? Now that's how I'm explaining it to you at this time based on how it has been explained to me. I've been in this process for over 4 years. Some of you have been in it for up to 10 years. And here's what we do know. Nothing was absolute. Nothing was stayed the same. It was a constantly changing scenario. And this could still change. There's a probability that some of this could still change. But what is important to know is there is an intention to release these funds. And the real intention behind releasing these funds, as I've shared with the people in my workshops, for those on my list, is it's not about you getting rich. That's not what this is about. This is not about you and me getting rich. It's about us being used as instruments and tools to move money around the world to help basically clean up what is called a lot of bad money, a lot of fiat money, a lot of where the major countries are all on the verge of bankruptcy. It's about keeping our economic system in healthy and good shape. And it's also about helping a lot of places where there's need to come up to economic parity. It's about leveling out the world of the haves and the have-nots. And that's what a lot of this intention is for. But for us as individuals, it's for more than that. It's about us being set free from this world that we've lived in of various forms of financial slavery. Being set free so we can start pursuing what are called the heart passions within us, that we have the time to do the work and the energy to be able to produce that kind of a world. I've talked very briefly about what is called the coming shifts of paradigms of power and control of the elite and the cabal, and that they're basically shifting their paradigms of power and control. And the new paradigm of power and control that myself and a lot of my top sources absolutely believe is going to be happening is the new world of the artificial intelligence. Now, when I say that, it's really important that you don't allow yourself to get caught up into fear. Because here's the reality. It's already happening. The one that I am going to refer to, some of you have sent me a lot of different stuff about artificial intelligence world that's coming forward. Folks, there's a lot of different stuff. There's 100 different faces about the topic. I'm not concerned about all the different faces. That's just what is going to be. What I want to share with you is about what can happen with us. And there's a reason why I want you to become aware of this, and so that we can be empowered to make sure that we're not controlled by it. The real form that artificial intelligence that has me concerned is what is called the new world of the nanobots. These nanobots are very, very, very small particles, and they're almost the size of dust. And they're like the chips that can be placed inside of you, but they're so small, they're the size of dust. I've referred to you to my website, thesedonaconnection.com, and you go to the resources tab, and in there's a link to a book by a gentleman by the name of Penn Ray. Wes Penn Ray has written about a 450-page book about the upcoming artificial intelligence world. He basically has said these new nanobots are so small and able to be distributed in such an effective manner that we cannot escape it. The only way we can really escape the upcoming nanobot world is if you want to live as a complete hermit in complete isolation of basically, what is our modern world today. If you're going to be out there in the modern world, there's a very high probability that you will have these nanobots. These nanobots, the best way to look at them is they're kind of like viruses. They get inside of your body. And I have been able to acquire the information how they operate. They get inside your body, they lodge up against your spine, and they use your spine as a form of the energy. It takes the energy that's running up and down your spine, and it latches into that energy, and that's what it empowers them. They're used for three predominant reasons. Number one is that they can act as an internal GPS unit, so that when they lock into your frequency, it's like locking into your cell phone. Each of us have an individual cell phone number, and when we dial a specific number, what we're doing is activating a specific frequency for someone else to lock into us on that phone number to carry on our communication. Well, these nanobots would also have their own individual coded frequency like an individual cell phone. And when they lock in on that, they can trace it and use it as a GPS unit to trace you wherever you go. It also has the ability to operate as an internal microphone where they can listen into any conversations that are going on within you and within about a 5 meter or 5 yard radius around you. The other thing is they do not have the ability to do what is called absolute mind control, but they do have the ability to do stimulus. They can stimulate certain feelings that can activate certain type of thoughts. The most important thing for us is to be aware of them. If you're aware of it and you're conscious of it and you can sense what's going on in you, because you would probably, if you focus on it, you're going to be able to feel it. And there is a way to overcome it. And you overcome of it. The overcoming is by developing this very strong, powerful, what is called heart consciousness energy. Now, I don't have the time here tonight to go into the details about it. But what I do know is, and this has already been tested, and what we have found out is, when you produce this very deep heart consciousness energy, and it's what Dr. Neruda in the Neruda interviews, which is called, I'm going blank on the term. It's basically developing a thought system that comes from a very strong, powerful, loving condition that awakens this energy within our heart that produces this very powerful quantum energy field around us. When that happens inside of us, that energy field is so strong and so powerful that it basically blows up or disables or short circuits the nanobots inside of us. See, those nanobots are so small, they can only operate on a very small frequency range of energy. And if the energy that comes in is too strong, it short circuits it. And we have the ability to do that by being very powerful, heart-conscious people. That's all it takes. That's all it is. Now, I'm sharing this with you for why? Well, myself and others, and this is not just me coming up with this. This is information I've been working on for 2 and 3 months. This is information I've run by a lot of my colleagues, a lot of my top sources, and we're all on the same page with this. There are some of these funds that are out there that are being released are basically black hat, cabal operated funds. And the vast majority of all of us believe that these funds are going to be released as a form of power and control. They're going to release these funds to turn you into a very wealthy person, but yet, in essence, you're going to be controlled by them. They're going to put some strong parameters around how you get to spend your money. They're going to watch how you spend your money. They're going to basically be monitoring what's going on of these sources of these funds. And with that, a lot of us believe these are the people that are going to be the prime targets for the release of these nanobots, because they have the ability then to monitor you, to watch where you're going, to listen to your conversations, to see how you're spending your money, and they have the ability to send influencing thoughts into you that favors their power and control. All these funds being released it's not just all a pie in the sky situation. We live in a world of what I call duality consciousness. In a world of duality consciousness, you always have the opposites, which means you're always going to have the black hats and the white hats. Now, I have worked very, very hard to make sure that the vast majority of all the sources that I'm working with are white hat sources of funds. I am familiar with the dark hat sources of the funds. I am not at liberty to be able to say who that is. If I did that, I may not be around here to be able to go to the full extent of basically being able to continue to give these stories to you. That's why I have to be very careful about when I come on the air and what I say here. Yes, I can say a whole lot more at the workshops because, see, once something is put out on the internet, you lose control of it. Anybody can take this video that I'm doing and could mass produce it, could put it all around the world. They could send it to people who basically I pretty much have ticked them off, gotten them pretty upset, and they would have the ability to retaliate against me and us as a group. So again, when I do it here, I have to be very careful, but at the workshops, I always have the ability to say a lot more. I'm going to go into more depth and in detail on that tomorrow night. And I'm wanting to put a full picture together about why we're receiving these funds, the responsibility that comes with these funds, and what could be the downside, or what could be what we call the dark hat side to this, and how that is coming about, and what myself and many others see as the potential coming out of that. At the end of the day, it always comes down to our free choice. It's our free will about how we want to do. And if we become people who are conscious and aware and alert to what is going on, we have the ability to not have anything to fear. Having said that, it's extremely important you don't allow yourself to fall into fear. Because see, as soon as you fall into fear, you've placed yourself in what is called the very low energy spectrum of the energy that you're emitting from yourself. And it's the lower vibration of energy that empowers these nanobots. It's the higher vibration of energy that basically dysfunctions them. And that's why it's extremely important you do not allow yourself to get into fear. There's always hope. There's always a positive aspect. There's always the ability for us to overcome anything that gets thrown at us. We're on the verge of a new world coming our way. We're on the verge, for those of you that have been with me for years, of knowing that the process is starting. And I want to really emphasize the process. This is a process that will go on for some months, if not even a couple of years. All I know is that the people that are already in my first round of funding, they will be the first ones that will be funded. And there's a very high probability that when I get to start second round, I don't get to do all 10,000 people at the same time. It will probably be done in groups, and it will be phased in over a period of time, and it could go on for months. Now, everybody gets to make their own choice, but I've been very, very clear. I will start first with the people who have attended my most recent workshops. I start from there and I work back. If you want to be at the very front at the beginning of this process, then I would encourage you to be able to show up at one of the workshops. We have one coming up a week from Saturday in Atlanta on December 9th. There are plenty of seats still available for that one. After that, I don't do anything until in January. Now, the first one in January is listed, and all of those are either on my website or the newsletter, all of the already the published dates and the probable cities where dates haven't been established yet. It was a couple of weeks ago I did a special seminar in Philadelphia. This was not the regular workshop, and it was overwhelming, outstanding, I guess, if that's the term I want to use. I had brought in a couple of my deep contact sources and had brought in Jason, and he spent about 3 hours talking about the cryptocurrencies and what is out there in the market and what's available and what we can do with that. And Jason's information was so overwhelming and so powerful, and the people just said, please, please, would you do this again? So Jason is more than willing to come and do that again. And it is we are going to basically turn what is the Sedona workshop into a Sedona seminar. So the one, it's the first or second, it's the second Saturday in December. That's the one that we're going to have Jason here in Sedona. Now, folks, everybody gets to make their own choices, but I would encourage you to become aware of the cryptocurrency world. There was this great little quote that I saw just this week, and it's really what I call apropos to what is developing and taking place. It says, what email did to the Postal Service is what the cryptocurrencies is going to do to the banking service. Email totally changed the Postal Service because it gave us an ability to say, I don't need to use the post office anymore to send information. I can use the internet, I can use email. And what's going to happen in the cryptocurrency world is I don't need to use the banks anymore to be able to move money. You see, previously without email, if I wanted to send documents and information, I was always dependent upon the Postal Service. And what has happened now is because of email, the Postal Service has basically turned into what is called the junk mail industry, is what it is. That's what most of the stuff that goes through the Postal Service, the vast majority of it is what we would call junk mail. Well, what's going to happen in the banking industry is that you and I are going to have the power and the ability to be able to move money from peer to peer without going through the banks. We will still have banks, but the banks, if I could use the appropriate term, if I want to say that, would be basically junk funds. Funds that, are secondary funds that we will still have our bank accounts to move some money, but when it's peer to peer, we will be able to do it using the cryptocurrencies. That's the coming world we're moving into. Having said that, these predominantly Bitcoin and the other predominant ones are still exploding. I don't do a lot of trading in the cryptocurrency world, but I do put money into one of my accounts and I just let it set. And let's just say in the last 4 days, it exploded over the Thanksgiving holiday weekend. And I received almost a 20% return on my money in just 4 days. I was talking with Jason last night, and the most common source that people use to have, quote, a wallet or to buy the currencies is the company called Coinbase.com. And what Jason said, over the Thanksgiving holiday weekend, they opened up over 600,000 new accounts. Why? Family, friends, traveling, meeting with each other over Thanksgiving. They're talking about Bitcoin, and they're saying, well, here, you can do this. And they go and they sit down at the computer and they open up, a Coinbase account. Over 600,000 people just did that over a 3-day period. Also, right now, the whole issue, and Coinbase is just one company, but they are basically, on the average, opening up over 100,000 new accounts per week. That means this stuff is still exploding, folks. It's still exploding. Because when you open up a Coinbase account, you're going to put your money into one of the 3 different coins. And those are the 3 most popular ones: Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin. I've got money in all 3. I just let it sit there, and it's growing exponentially. I had this money. It says I can let it sit in my bank account and get less than 1% interest per year. Or I can put it into my Bitcoin, or my cryptocurrency wallet in all 3 of those coins, and I can get between 10 and 20% per month. That's the difference. And that's on the low side of what's been happening over the last 6 to 8 months. That's why I encourage you to understand this. It's not just about an investment issue. It's also about what's coming our way. It's about what's available for us to basically neuter the cabal banking industry, because we move our money out of their influence and their power and their control. And as I said, it allows us to be in power and control of communicating and expressing or exchanging our money with each other and not having to be dependent upon the bank. So I'm going to talk about those things tomorrow night. I'll talk about a little bit of the update that goes on. I'll talk about what is our purpose for being here. I'll talk about where the opposition is coming from, and especially the new forms of artificial intelligence technology that's coming our way, how we can free ourselves from it, not be under its control. And then I'll talk about how we can empower each other as well. And we'll go into much more detail on that tomorrow night. So I'd be happy to have you there to join us on the program tomorrow night. Okay, thanks a lot. And have an absolutely wonderful day tomorrow and the rest of the week. Okay, bye-bye.